Hi, I'm Doug Boynton, and you're listening to WHRO's Weekly Edition, where we highlight the week's news and stories happening in our region. In this week's program, a whole slew of elections took place this week. We'll have you covered on a few of the important state and local races that highlighted the region. It's Fight Night Friday in Hampton Roads. We catch up with Norfolk lightweight fighter Keyshawn Davis before this historic moment.
And being that, this is a homecoming fight, it's a different feeling. It's really undescribable, honestly, how I feel right now.
Data centers are booming in Virginia, but what does that mean for energy and sustainability concerns? We dig into the details. It's WHRO's Weekly Edition. Republican incumbent Jen Kiggins declared victory Wednesday morning for Virginia's 2nd District U.S. House seat. WHRO's Sienna Morales reports.
Kiggins accepted her victory Wednesday morning in a social media post and will go on to a second term in the U.S. House of Representatives. She defeated challenger Missy Cotter-Smozzle by about 4%, according to the State Department of Elections. Cotter-Smozzle led votes in Northampton, Suffolk, and Franklin counties, but Kiggins took the rest of the district, with big wins in Chesapeake and Isle of Wight counties. She won Virginia Beach by a margin of about 1%. Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin and Attorney General Jason Miyares were among those who congratulated Kiggins Wednesday afternoon. Sienna Morales, WHRO News.
See more local election results online at whro.org. If you've had your hopes up about curbside recycling coming back to Chesapeake, you're probably not going to like this next one. Residents voted against a referendum to reinstate the program that was cut 2 years ago. WHRO's Catherine Hafner has the details.
The question on Chesapeake's ballot asked residents whether they support bringing back curbside service, with a new monthly fee of up to $10. A majority said no. That includes Lori Barty, who chatted with WHRO after voting at Hickory Middle School.
I said no, don't feel like paying for it.
Others, like David Ortiz, do want to see recycling return.
I mean, it's really sad because it's for our future, for our kids. It's just not something that we want to continue to throw in our landfills.
The referendum is essentially just a survey. City leaders are not bound to follow the result. In fact, council members say the question might not matter soon. The Regional Waste Authority is considering a new system where people would no longer need to separate recycling from trash. Catherine Hafner, WHRO News.
U.S. Senator Tim Kaine was elected to a third term this week, beating Republican opponent Hung Cao. Michael Pope from member station WVTF has this report from Kaine's victory party in Richmond Tuesday night.
Speaking to a room full of anxious supporters, Tim Kaine thanked the people who helped send him to another term in the United States Senate.
It ain't strategists, it ain't pollsters, it's not slick ad people, it's you.
It may have been a victory party, but the mood was somber. Here's Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan.
A win is a win, and we got some work to do to make sure that we continue winning going forward.
Now that 2024 is almost over, Virginia will turn its attention to the statewide election next year, when a new governor will be elected. Traditionally, an election that goes in the opposite direction of the presidential election. Michael Pope.
North Carolina Democrat Josh Stein won his gubernatorial bid with just over half the votes. WHRO's Michelle Hankerson reports.
Stein has been the Attorney General since 2016. He ran against Republican Mark Robinson for governor. Stein said in his acceptance speech his campaign was one of competency and hope.
We have big challenges ahead, but we have even bigger dreams to realize.
Stein spoke about improving the economy, supporting public schools, and protecting abortion access throughout his campaign. As Attorney General, he joined several lawsuits to curb judicial decisions that would have impacted reproductive rights. Michelle Hankerson, WHRO News.
Nearly 4.3 million Virginians cast their vote for federal, state, and local issues this week. WHRO's reporters talked to some of them at the polls about what brought them out. Here's what they had to tell us.
Amber Holloway, Virginia Beach. I have a kid, a 2-year-old, so this is more so about her than it is me now, so just fighting for her rights as well. If she decided to have a family, things in that nature, I want her to be able to have that choice and not it be determined by a group of other people.
Kayla Lawson. I'm from the Eastern Shore of Maryland, but I've been in Norfolk for about 7 years now. I voted for Kamala today, and I'm voting for the Supreme Court and for the administration as a whole. I don't agree with the people that Donald Trump was going to appoint into positions of power, and as somebody who struggled with infertility and child loss, I don't trust my health care in their hands.
Tom Hickey from Chesapeake. I did vote to recycle. I wasn't actually even aware that it was going to be on the ballot, but it's something that I do have strong feelings about. I don't know why it went away to begin with. So, it's something we like to do. No, it's, I think it's been cut and dry, and I think hopefully the American people will make the right decision and make things go and in the right way for the country and the world.
Heather Daughtry, Hampton, Virginia. Honestly, I'm a Trump supporter. I just feel like the world has been in total chaos since he was not in the White House, and Biden and Harris, I'm totally disgusted with them. I'm ready for a change again. I'm ready for Trump to take back our country. Getting the illegals out of the country and our economy, building that back up.
My name is Vicky Myrick, and I live in the city of Portsmouth, Virginia. As a school system employee, I just want to make sure that hopefully those that are elected or those that are in city council and the school board that are going to make a difference and that are going to advocate for our children, for what's best for them and their education and their success.
Ronald Alexander. The older ones, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, were too old for in my opinion.
Kendall Tarkington. The economy and the border are the biggest issues to me right now. The current administration has really failed at the economy, and it seems like they left the border open on purpose. Definitely close the border up. He was close to doing it in his first term, but they didn't let him. But that's an important thing that he needs to stop the flow of illegals into the country.
I'm Max, and I'm from Norfolk, Virginia. Simply the fact that I cannot see Donald Trump being president again. Could be really bad for our country. I mean, you name it. Like, there's a million and one reasons. Also the fact that he's a convicted felon that has to do it.
Mia Jones, and I'm from Warrington. The abortion, like women's rights, and climate change for me.
Joseph Dean, the general state of the economy. The inflation, the cost of living is so sky high right now that you need to do something to get that kind of way back down way further than it is now.
Amelia Benson, Virginia Beach. Everything for me. Democracy, laws, they're taking away our rights, trying to take away our rights. Want to make sure everything is for the one that wants these things for everybody, not just a few.
Still ahead on Weekly Edition, a new theater company in southeastern Virginia is shaking up the scene through untraditional means. But first, America doesn't determine its presidents by a popular vote. Instead, it employs a system that no other democracy in the world uses. It's called the Electoral College, and it persists as a remnant of an earlier time. WVTF's Sandy Hausman reports on what it is and how it works.
Barbara Perry is a political scientist at UVA's Miller Center of Public Affairs. Early in her career, she joked about something the founders of this country created.
I still have to this day a T-shirt that says property of the Electoral College Athletic Department.
But for the founders, this was no joke.
They had just enough pessimism about human nature to worry about the kinds of people to be chosen by the people.
They feared the voters might fall for a demagogue.
Someone who tells lies, half-truths, appeals to the base instincts of people, often picks a group of people to be defined as the other or to be prejudiced against, and then, as Alexander Hamilton said, goes from being a demagogue to courting the people to being a tyrant.
So they established a group of white male landowners who would gather after the vote and make the final decision about who should be the commander-in-chief.
educated men would come together after the people had voted, and they would make their choice. And if it was different, so be it, because that was the check on the popular will, should it get out of whack.
Political parties here in Virginia pick 13 electors, like 43-year-old Matt Rowe from Fredericksburg.
We choose electors at congressional district conventions, one from each congressional district, and then at our state convention, we choose 2 more to round out the 13.
He and Gary Schatz, a retired member of this country's Foreign Service, now living in Mineral, want to ditch the Electoral College, but still they thought it was an experience worth having.
They hold the ceremony in the House of Delegates chambers. It's the exact same process that we went about for the past couple hundred years in Virginia, as they do in all the other state capitals. Being able to be a part of that was special.
The elector is kind of the last hurrah. This is my last hurrah as well. I'm 80 years old.
Schatz says there's no money to be made.
We might get a lunch.
And electors can't change their mind about what candidate will get their vote.
We have a faithless elector law. If someone has the idea of maybe they won't support the person that they were elected to support, then they'll be replaced.
All but 2 states, Maine and Nebraska, go with a winner-take-all model. In most states, if 50.1% of voters favor one candidate, all of the electoral votes go to that person, which is why 4 times the Electoral College has given us the candidate who lost the popular vote. After those elections, there were calls to get rid of the Electoral College, but Professor Perry points out that it's in our Constitution, so we'd have to amend it.
That would have to either come from a constitutional convention, which I don't think we'd want to take the chance of having right now, but it also could come through the Congress.
But Republicans dominate in the House, and their party has benefited most from the Electoral College, so they don't want to change it. Democrats came up with another path, launching an organization of states pledged to give their electoral votes to the candidate who wins the popular vote nationwide. But that agreement won't take effect until it has at least 270 electoral votes, enough to win the presidency. Right now, 17 states and the District of Columbia have joined. Virginia is not among them, and they account for just 207 electoral votes. I'm Sandy Hausman.
Let's get ready to rumble. It's Fight Night Friday in Norfolk tonight. Norfolk native and lightweight contender Keyshawn Davis returned home this week excited and ready to take on Gustavo Lemos in a Friday night match at the Scope. WHRO's Lisa Godley gives us a look at this historic moment and why it's so important to Davis.
The last time the Norfolk Scope was packed for a world title boxing match was July 27, 1991, when Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker took on the number 1 ranked contender, Paulie Diaz. The hometown crowd saw Whitaker win that fight by unanimous decision. There were 8,000 people in the Scope that night. This Friday, more than 10,000 will be on hand as another hometown hero, 25-year-old Keyshawn Davis, with a record of 11 wins, 0 losses, and 7 knockouts, enters the ring to take on Gustavo Lemos. I asked Keyshawn about coming home.
Home is home, man, and of course every time you come home you just get that welcoming feeling, whether it's surrounded by people or when as soon as the plane lands, just like, I'm home, and being that, this is a homecoming fight, it's a different feeling. It's really undescribable, honestly, how I feel right now. The city reaction is crazy to this homecoming, just seeing my face. They're just so excited, man, and the energy is coming on to me, and it's just a positive mood out here throughout the entire week so far. It's just so positive.
Keyshawn and his 2 brothers, Kelvin and Keon, have always dreamed of bringing boxing back to Norfolk ever since they first put on boxing gloves while still in elementary school. The 3 Davis brothers named their company DB3 and are excited seeing their dream come true. Brothers Kelvin and Keon are also on the card for Friday night's fight. For WHRO News, I'm Lisa Godley.
There are still tickets available to see Davis's match in person at the Scope. Visit 7venues.com for more information. The match will also be streamed live on ESPN+.
This is WHRO's Weekly Edition. Remember, for any stories you've missed, you can visit us on the WHRO smartphone app or all social media platforms.
Virginia has become a global hub for data centers. They're needed to support the rise of artificial intelligence. These centers consume massive amounts of energy. Folks are worried about what that means for Virginia's grid. WHRO's Catherine Hafner explains.
Pretty much everything you do on the internet runs through a data center. Watching Netflix, online shopping, searching something on Google, all of that virtual information has to be stored and processed somewhere physical. That's where a data center comes in. It's basically a big computer storehouse. Raj Chuggar is Chief Power Officer for EdgeConneX. They operate a 19,000 square foot data center in Norfolk. He says it's kind of like a greenhouse, but for computers.
In this case, instead of plants, you have servers. There's servers on both sides, and there are rows and rows of those.
Right now, companies across the country are racing to build more data centers. Chudgar says that's because of the rise of artificial intelligence. AI requires exponentially more data processing.
But in order to do that, you have to have more data centers.
And a ton of those are coming to Virginia.
Virginia is the data center capital of the world. We have more data centers here than anywhere else across the globe.
Tim Sawinski is a spokesperson for the Sierra Club in Virginia. Around 70% of the world's internet traffic runs through Northern Virginia alone. The area became a hub largely due to tax incentives starting decades ago. And all of those computer servers sitting in these centers use massive amounts of energy and water, both to power them and to cool them down. Sawinski and other environmentalists worry the growth in data centers is driving up energy demand, right when Virginia is trying to cut back on burning fossil fuels that drive global warming.
One data center campus, and this is not an exaggeration, can use the same amount of power as a small city.
Dominion Energy is proposing new natural gas plants to accommodate all this rising demand. That's despite the utility's commitment and state requirements to shift to clean energy. The Sierra Club argues Virginians will ultimately end up paying for this infrastructure through higher electricity bills. Dominion says residents will see slight annual increases to their bills over the next 15 years. But spokesperson Aaron Ruby says that includes all new energy infrastructure, including wind and solar.
So 80% of all the new power generation that we're going to build to serve this growing power demand is going to be carbon-free.
He says using natural gas for the remainder is critical to ensure there's always enough to keep the lights on. Many tech companies are trying to get more power from renewables to meet their own climate goals. That's driving the construction of new projects like wind and solar. One example is just south of the Virginia border, in North Carolina's rural Chowan County. Apex Clean Energy is finishing up a new wind farm here on over 6,000 acres of farm and timberland. Local Representative Wynn Dale showed me around some of the construction last month.
You can see they've started erecting the tower section over there for one of the turbines.
These turbines aren't meant to power homes like Dale's. Google is the customer here. The search giant has agreed to buy every bit of electricity these turbines generate for, you guessed it, data centers. Just over a dozen miles northeast, another wind farm helps Amazon data centers. But renewable energy projects just aren't being permitted and built as fast as data centers are. They can't keep pace with that demand. Chudgar with the EdgeConneX data center in Norfolk says the company wants to use only clean electricity, but he acknowledges that's just not possible at the moment.
What we're seeing is that the demand for power on the data center side is exceeding the build potential of renewables. It's just a fact right now.
In the short term, they have to get their power where they can. And that often means burning more fossil fuels. Catherine Hafner, WHRO News.
There's a new theater company in Southeast Virginia, Rouge. It's stage theater dedicated to bringing productions beyond traditional venues. WHRO's Barry Graham has the details.
Patrick Mullins is the executive producer of the company. A veteran of local theater productions, he said it's important to stretch where we see such live theater.
You work in a bubble sometimes when you work on art, and that's necessary. We need a protective place for art to grow in. But the other side of that is we can share it far beyond the bubble. And so putting it in different places across Hampton Roads is a way to do that.
Arts organizations, especially in the immediate post-pandemic years, have struggled to recapture memberships and attendance, though Mullins says there are signs that people are attending events and the nature of art itself is evolving.
Everybody's going to tell you that people aren't going to the theater and they aren't going to the symphony and they aren't going to live music. But Taylor Swift's selling out and people are traveling across the country to go to those shows. And that's theater. Sometimes what we relegate in this tiny little box is our art form is much, much bigger than what we refer to. Some forms of theater are having a hard time right now, or audiences that have traditionally attended are aging out, and other audiences didn't come up in the same school systems with the same training and the same connection to the art form. It means something different than them.
Just as consumers are getting news and information from different sources, with podcasts replacing the traditional daily newspaper and evening TV newscast, so too are patrons of the arts. Mullins says people are looking for a different theater experience than what we're used to. However, the need to do that together is the key linchpin.
It's not that theater is dying. It's about we're coming together in different ways than ever before. In fact, I think coming together is more important and even more valued, I would argue, than it's ever been. In a world where in 2024, I can sit down at my laptop and type some words into a computer, and 5 minutes later, have a full choir singing whatever song about whatever theme, and it sounds really darn good. That's amazing. So I can get anything I want on digital delivery. What I can't get on digital delivery is my nervous system in the same space with other nervous systems.
Rouge's first production for this year is Rosie the Riveter, the iconic World War II figure who inspired women to join the workforce and secure America's strength in the war effort. The immersive experience is set in the Virginia Beach Military Aviation Museum. Mullins says the playwright hails from this area, and the production was rewritten around the unique venue.
Playwright Trey Clarkson has lived here for a long time. He wrote this play that has been produced over 60 times across the country, and we worked with him to rewrite it for this immersive environment where we're, instead of talking about the things that people in the show would talk about on stage, we're really interacting with the machines and the riveting and the actual circumstances.
Rouge will also feature productions this season around venues that include the Hermitage Museum and Lynnhaven House, continuing their avenue of bringing art outside what Mullins calls the grand palaces of theater. You can find out more about Rosie the Riveter, which begins its run this weekend, and other Rouge productions at rougeva.org. For WHRO News, I'm Barry Graham.
You can find out more about Rosie the Riveter, which begins its run this weekend, and other Rouge productions at rougevs.org. You've been listening to WHRO's Weekly Edition. We had help today from Sienna Morales, Michelle Hankerson, Catherine Hafner, Lisa Godley, and Barry Graham. VPR's Michael Pope and WVTF's Sandy Hausman. Also Connor Worley, who produced today's show. A reminder, you can always catch full episodes on the Weekly Edition podcast feed. You can get your news updates at WHRO.org and the WHRO Reports podcast feed. For all of us at WHRO and WHRV, I'm Doug Boynton.